like it like this. You know, I'm using one of the Lewitt microphones. You're using the SM7B, and then we have the iPhone. We'll indirectly make this into a review. Exactly.
Yeah. To be honest, like iPhone, it's holding its own.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at like how. Yeah, your iPhone, dude. Like, you know, in terms of audio quality, like when you do this for a long time, many people will call from their laptops or their phones, and you know, I've had various people do it from iPhones and Androids, and with Androids, it's a hit or miss. Like they have very shitty audio on average, but iPhones tend to be, you know, as far as phones go, they're pretty half decent, you know? So,
yeah. Something to do with like the way that audio gets encoded with Apple.
Yeah.
Is just like when my dad finally got his first phone and we had like a chat the other day, it was so weird because usually I talk to him on his landline and it's just, you know, like it's talking on a walkie talkie, but then like now he's got his brand new phone. It was just like, I was like, I don't know if I can, this is a little bit weird. It's like in my ear.
Yeah. How old is your dad, by the way? Did you have to like teach him everything, or is your dad pretty much up to date to everything?
He used to be really savvy with stuff, but he hasn't had a phone, like a smartphone ever. So yeah, he's definitely had a little bit of learning. My mom's like, our mom's like she's really good at that stuff. She's had, you know, iPhones and Androids for ages. So she's kind of like getting him up to scratch. But yeah, he's in like, you know, the boomer generation.
Yeah, you know, it's a mind trip. My mom and dad. So I live in Los Angeles in the United States, but my parents, they're from Guatemala. So I'm born here, but you know, they're like old school country kind of people, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah. Very interesting stories. So they moved here and then immediately went to work. So they've never really been very tech savvy, although they're starting to become it. We had to teach my mom how to use a computer 2 years ago, and it's such a mind trip showing somebody how to use a mouse. Like, you don't know how insane it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so intuitive for us, but like, or at least it seems like it. Because, you know, we learned to use computers at like, you know, sub 10 years old. So, yeah, it's strange to think of it. I guess it's kind of like learning a language, though. Like, we didn't take that. We took it for granted that it was actually kind of like learning a whole process and language at a young age. Kind of like I imagine people that learned 2 languages at a young age, but I don't think it's as cool as knowing 2 languages.
No, for sure. I wonder if like in our future, when we're like in our 50s and 60s, if like maybe coding,
something else will come about.
You know, like, well, I mean, I feel like a lot of kids, I know a lot of my friends are starting to have kids, and some of them had kids like maybe like, I don't know, 7 years ago. And a lot of these kids are taking like coding classes, and that boggles my mind. You know what I mean? Like, these kids are going to be whizzes at coding, which is, I know a little bit, but not enough to like, you know, get a job or some shit like that, you know? And it's crazy to know that.
So for example, here.
Yeah, I reckon it's just like even when I'm on the plane or something and you see like there's like, you know, toddlers and stuff that are just like so proficient at using like an iPad or whatever. They're like, I think it's like, it's just like I think it's the same skills, but like the language has moved more into like that more like tactile thing. Like you see like those videos of like, oh, look at this kid, he's trying to swipe a photo. What an idiot. But it's like,
that's going to be us, dude. That's going to be when we're old, we're going to be looking at holograms and shit. We're going to be like, how the fuck do we handle this stuff? This stuff's insane. And our kids are going to be like, oh, this is easy. It's fucking easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
You just hollow swipe.
You know?
Yo, random question. Was that my Instagram? I think I heard something that I made. I don't know. I heard an audio that sounded familiar to me.
Really? I'm not on. I'm just in this call.
I am on your Insta. Like, I was on your Insta for a sec. I was just looking at this like FL Studio thing. It's like an FL Studio like workflow, and I was like, damn, there's a lot of stuff going on there. But I'm surprised you can hear that because it's it must be like doing like I don't know, like because I'm only on my headphones, but I guess it must be doing like this like internal. I don't know. I'm doing something.
No. Sorry, I wasn't trying to call you out or anything. I thought it was funny. I like heard my voice for a second. I was like, wait a minute. That's odd. No, dude, I love it. I do appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to be on the show.
No problem.
I do this for a living, and I get to talk to really cool people and just explore your mindset. So I just wanted to ask you, we kind of already started, you know, I like to chat a little bit before we officially get into it. So maybe we can include this in the interview. I don't know, but I just want to check on your time today. Do you guys have a strict schedule, or are you guys cool to maybe go for like, I don't know, about an hour or so? Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, like
that's fun to me.
Yeah, we're basically. So I don't know if Cos filled you in, but like, yeah, Sydney's just gone back into a lockdown as of like 2 days ago. So yeah, we're basically just.
So you can't do shit. You can't leave your house. Can't do anything. They'll just tell you to go back inside. Damn, dude. We're kind of in lockdown. I don't know, dude. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you don't keep up with like U.S. politics, but things are very weird over here. But that's not.
Yeah, I mean, like U.S. politics is kind of like where the world looks, I think. So I think, yeah, we're like, we've been like keeping fairly up to date. But yeah, I know that the virus is quite rampant right now in the US, but there's also a vaccine that's being delivered as well, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting. I've had some friends that have already taken it. It's just
really?
Yeah, and so far the response seems fairly good. I mean, a lot of those friends I'm referring to, they're like doctors and stuff.
Yeah.
So
only it makes sense to roll it out to the medical,
exactly,
people who actually exposed to it a lot of the time.
Yeah, only first responders and like doctors have access to it right now. Yeah. And then I think next year we might have access to it, but everyone seems to be happy with it. And so I'm just anxious for things to like get back to how it used to be.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
You know, I miss playing shows. I miss doing all that. It's been a, you know what, we were talking about it with Cosmo earlier. Like I feel like this year when it first started, and I mean when the pandemic first started, it was a bit of an impact for everybody. And you kind of had to scramble a little bit to figure out what you were going to do. But I feel like after maybe about a month or two, everybody kind of got into the groove of things. That definitely happened for me, for sure.
Right. And you kind of start going down like alternate pathways to just like keep things moving. Even though it's like not as it's still rewarding, but it's like it's definitely different. But it was really cool because like. Just a few weeks ago, I think it was, it's like 10 days ago, we played like a sit down like COVID safe show at the Sydney Opera House.
Oh wow!
We played 2 of those there, so that was their first show back. And actually, it was really annoying because Australia was looking really good, and then there was just like this couple up on the northern beaches were getting COVID a test, and then while they were waiting for their results, they went like on a fucking like grand tour.
The gas stations free, like drinks and food all around Sydney, and basically restarted the entire epidemic in Sydney, like single-handedly. So,
god damn, man, fuck that.
Yeah, everyone's pretty upset at them. And like all of like our extended family lives up where that super spreader is, so they've had to lock down. Like we live further away from that, so the lockdown for us is kind of like it's a suggestion and an enforcement. But if you live up in the northern beaches where it is, like you're absolutely locked down. Like I've got friends who are like teachers and stuff, and they can't go anywhere. All the Christmas plans are up in smoke. But honestly, I feel like not celebrating Christmas is a pretty small price to pay for a pandemic-free 2021. So
absolutely, are you kidding me?
Sorted, guys. Yeah.
You know what's interesting is I find that most artists that I've talked to, everyone seems to be on the same page. You know what I mean? Like everyone is kind of like, yeah, let's get through this. I haven't talked to an artist that's been very much like, well, this is a hoax. I don't agree with it. Like literally everybody has been on the same page to try and like get through this, which is cool. Because I want to get through it. I want to be done with this already. It's been
we're all like looking to move back into doing shows and seeing the world. I want to travel again and play shows all over. It's been but as I was saying, it has been a nice kind of year to reflect and kind of experience some downtime, because we've basically been mostly put down on the pedal for the last 5 years trying to grow and, proliferate and all that. So it's been nice to have a year off to kind of just take it easy, which has been such a kind of weird gift in a way, just in a bad way, wrapped in a bad way.
The silver lining.
Yeah, silver lining.
The expression. Yeah.
You know what? I think it's also like I think everybody was handed a bad hand, and so you kind of had to choose what to do with that. You know, it wasn't your fault or anybody's fault for that matter, you know? So you had to either choose to reflect or create or, I don't know, repair something, or you can just sit there and complain, you know? And it sounds like you guys just reflected. Can I ask you guys, before COVID, and by the way, I figure this would be kind of like a good place to start, if you guys don't mind. I like to just kind of go with it. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
I love this. Okay. When it came to pre-COVID, I guess you can say, were you guys pretty much busy, like back to back, doing shows, writing, and just on the grind, so to speak?
Yeah. So pretty much for the last 3 years, we toured nonstop. Like basically every year we do Asia, America, back and just hit those places, you know, once or twice a year. And then we went to Europe for the first time 2 years ago. And then of course touring Australia once a year as well, and then the festival circuit. So it was really, pretty full on. And then at the start of this year, we were looking into, you know, doing the same. We were ready. We were just about to come back to America, and we were very close to booking our flights, but we were just checking just to see what was going on. But we were almost going to pull the trigger on that, and then the lockdown started, and everyone cancelled everything. But we were supposed to go to America twice this year. We're going to come May, and then we're going to come back in October. And we also had our own Australia tour planned for our album. There's a whole bunch of festivals that got cancelled. So basically, this whole year was kind of pulled out from under us, and we just had to decide whether we'd delay the album or just whatever. But we ended up deciding that it was a good time to put the album out anyway. We were really sold on it, and we really liked it, and we thought people would, you know, enjoy listening to it, and even though we couldn't tour it, so we decided to put it out. Which is nice.
I'm wondering, how was the response for the album? And the reason why I'm asking is I do remember that, and I'm not sure if this happened in Australia, but I do remember out here in the US, there was I would say between June, July, and August, and maybe a little bit of September, but there was this huge influx of music. And so there was a lot of cool tracks and stuff that came out during that little, the summer period. But there was severely more music than ever before, so to speak. And now, obviously, I don't have the stats in front of me, but that was the feeling that I got based on what I heard from people. And so,
feel like that.
What was that?
It does. Yeah, I do agree. I do feel like it did feel
I think there's a lot of people kind of reaching a point where they're like, you know what, this year is what it is. Let's just put out music. Let's show what we've had in store for people, and not try and play the waiting game any longer and see what happens. We have good music, we trust the music, let's put it out. I think that's kind of what everyone had the similar thought process.
Yeah, and I agree. And I feel like this was also the time where a lot of people experimented with interesting ideas that they normally would not have experimented before. Now, one of the things that I ended up discovering was, because of how there was so much music around, there was a lot of artists that did not necessarily reach a lot of the goals that they thought they would have. There were some that did. There's some that didn't. I'm wondering for you, since you guys actually waited to October, which I think was actually a pretty smart move, towards the fall and stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, your album came out towards the end of October, right? Or maybe mid-October, I think.
I feel like it was on the first, a third day of October, but I'm going to check, because I can't remember.
October, nonetheless. It was October. It was year. October. And I'm wondering, October 2nd. I love that. It's my birthday month, so I love October. Great month.
My mom's birthday month as well.
Oh, there you go. What day? I'm curious.
31st, Halloween.
Halloween. Oh, that's badass. Mine's the 25th. So
all right.
We're Scorpios. Me and your mom are Scorpios.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We get along. So I'm wondering for your your fan base and a lot of the stuff that you felt that you received through this album, what did you feel was the reception overall for your music at that time? Did you feel like it was challenging, there was a lot of competition, or did you feel like it might have been the perfect time and there was a wise move to wait till October? I think it was, based on what I saw, but I don't know. I'm asking you because I imagine you guys were there firsthand to see it.
Yeah. I feel that the one thing that we found a little bit not scary, but just, you know, a little bit of, you know, we were nervous a little bit about it was having a featureless album, more or less. You know, we had like 3 features, I think. And so most of the push behind the tracks had to come from within the songs themselves and through Pat's vocals. And this was the first time that we were, you know, going heavy on Pat singing on all the tracks. So I think
you sound great, Pat, by the way. You sound great on those tracks.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the only real kind of, I guess even that wasn't too much of we were really like, you know, we got to a point with this album where we felt confident in them all, and they had this kind of cohesive nature that we hadn't had, I feel like, almost in previous albums, because Pat was singing all of them. I feel like it kind of strengthened everything in a way. So I think the one thing we were just a bit worried about was like not being able to tour it. I think we were, you know, I think we've gotten to a point now where we are relatively confident in our music. We try not to think too much about like, oh, how does this sit in terms of like everything else that's out there right now? We just go like, do we feel this track is right? Like, have we, when we've made this, like, is there anything that's lacking in terms of how we're reacting to it? And there, at this point, we were kind of like, no, there isn't. So we were pretty confident putting this album out that people would like it. And yeah, there was a lot of good stuff coming out around the same time, but it was just nice to like, you know, see all of it happening and kind of just be up against all this stuff. It was like a kind of nice competition, but we always felt like we'd stick out in some regard, hopefully.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Patrick, since this was if I'm not mistaken, this was the first album where you're like heavily featured as the lead vocalist, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm wondering, as someone who's not a singer myself, like I can match pitches, but that's not the same as singing, you know. I have a horrible fucking singing voice. I mean, I'm a great drummer, but you put me to sing and I will kill everybody with my voice. It's great for talking though. It's great for talking though. That's for sure. I guess I'm wondering, you know, as someone who's, you know, you and your twin brother, right? You guys have been producing this music, and there's been this sort of, I imagine you guys have a workflow and something that you guys are used to, but then choosing to, you know, go to the, I don't want to say forefront, but choosing to like showcase your vocals. Can be a huge move for somebody and can be very risk taking, because now you're sort of risking to, you know, seeing if people will actually like it, if your fan base will, you know, they'll be polite obviously sometimes, but will they actually resonate? I'm wondering for you, was this like a nerve-wracking decision, and why now? Why did you decide to do it now? Was this something that was always in the works? Was it always in the plan? I'm just wondering, because I do feel like it's a big decision when you decide to like, hey, I'm going to sing on this album, which I think you sounded great choice, but it's that choice that matters sometimes, you know, because before it happens, you gotta think about it and then you gotta do it, you know. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Honestly, at the time, I was not really thinking about like the repercussions or whatever of making, you know, of singing on stuff. I was just really excited to be doing it. So, you know, we're just writing these songs and we'd like have a look and we'd send them to other singers and they'd, you know, have a go. But it just felt like these songs just weren't coming together the way we were hoping, even when we were getting these really talented people to sing on them. And I think it was just honestly because the way we were writing these songs, when we were writing them, I was already kind of subconsciously coming up with these vocal melodies and ideas, and just having other people do it just didn't feel like they were realized as our own songs. And on our last record, like there was one song that I sang on called Polarized, and that was responded to really positively. Like it was just a deeper cut on the record, but ended up getting like, you know, it's gotten probably like 10 million plays and now-ish. And playing it live is really rewarding. And from there, it was kind of just a little bit of like a confidence boost when it came to the next record. And I thought, you know, like I'm going to just take the plunge and try record a full top line for this song. And I think the first single that came off that record with me singing was Yesteryear, and people again were really supportive, responded really well, and that was kind of just a green light to just go full tilt and record everything. And of course, like you're super nervous when you do it, because it's a very personal thing, and it's very vulnerable sort of singing on stuff, because it's how you sound when you sing. And like I was very self-conscious about it. Even like when we played our live show like 2 weeks ago. That was the first time I've sung in front of like a crowd before. So that was another big step.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So it was definitely pretty daunting, pulling that shit out. But it worked out. Like everything just worked out. I think it's not really, you just don't want to think about the what ifs and just just be hyped on it and be excited. And I feel like people just gravitate to stuff that's genuine. And you know, like I worked on making my voice sound as nice as possible. Like I'm not the most like talented singer, but I feel like I've got something I want to say, and I've got like a pocket for my voice, and I think and then people have just kind of gravitated towards it, which is real cool. So playing live is just like it's a lot. It's super rewarding to be really kind of putting yourself out there in a whole new level, and having people, you know, really respond to it is so awesome. Like I felt like we were waiting, you know, 3 months, like October is when it came out. So November, December is like 2 months until we actually played the album in front of an audience, and seeing how they responded to the vocals in a live space was, it was all worth it. It was super worth it.
Yeah. Cosmo, do you sing at all?
No. So I think if I worked on it, like I could find where my voice is. I think Pat does a really obviously like falsetto head voice. I can do that as well. Not as I can do backup, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like if we're doing like gang vocals, like I can do it. Like I can sing up and like fill out the track. Like in a lot of the tracks on the album, I am singing in there to help bulk it up a bit and just give it like a textual difference. I feel like you want to get as many different, if you're trying to go for that old kind of disco or funk sound where it's got heaps of singers all with different tonalities to their voice singing at the same time. That's why we, you know, for Can You Dig It, we got like 4 or 5 friends, all with different voices that are terrible at singing to do their best at singing this, because it gave it that kind of effect.
Yeah. There's a few songs on the record where we wanted people who weren't singers just to do these parts, just to give them that real crowd, you know, crowd chant vibe.
Yeah. But I would say I currently no, I'm not a singer. I'd like to develop a singing voice just for my own personal enjoyment, you know. It's nice to be able to sing. But I think I'd probably go for a little more lower register style.
Yeah. I think I took choir back in college. I think I'm a tenor, but I'm not a good singer at all. So I respect anyone's got a great voice. That's what I'm saying. Like I really do respect it.
I feel like everyone, I don't know, I don't want to be like cheesy, but I feel like everyone potentially has a voice. It's just everyone has to play to their strengths, just like in anything else. Like if you have a deeper voice, you can't be like, oh, I want to sing like Justin Timberlake. You got to like have that baritone. So it's just, I think a lot of it is, you know, if you
finding where your voice
sits, what style it is, what, you know, what kind of timbre it has, just what notes you can hit, what you can't hit, and start from there. Like, I think the reason
it took me, voice is like a muscle.
It is.
Yeah. And I think it took me a while to even just find out where my voice sits. Like now I know what keys I can sing in a lot easier than other keys, and like some like registers, like some keys I sing in are like really, you know, they do make my voice sound way better because they're just notes I can hit really comfortably and they're cruisy. And then there's other keys I'm like, God damn, that's like just below my falsetto. So I have to like move my chest voice. And then it's like, you can kind of do this thing where when you move between your chest and your head voice, it kind of yodels a bit.
Yeah.
And like,
so little secret technique right there. Yeah.
It's a lot of people that do that, but it's like I'm trying to not do that. So I'm trying to like do these techniques to push down, like to extend the range of my falsetto so it doesn't crack when I do the lower notes. But
what's your sweet spot? Like which key is your sweet spot, you would say? Like what would you say is your favorite key?
My favorite key is probably D major, shortly followed by like, you know, F major or C/A minor. C/A minor. So, but D major is where the majority of our records written. So we definitely gravitated towards that.
It's a good key to a lot of songs actually written in D. I keep forgetting which one's the one. Like, you would think that C major would be the key that's most popular, but it's not actually. I think I forgot where I read this, but somebody actually tallied up like a lot of legendary pop songs, and I think D and A are the most popular keys for pop music. I think. I don't remember.
Yeah, I feel like D. I don't know. There's just something about it. It's just the bass. It's another thing we think about when we're writing bass lines, is that the bass wants to hit like just right. Like if it's too low, it doesn't hit hard. If it's too high, it doesn't hit hard. If it's just sitting right, just in that perfect little pocket where the bass sits super nicely, that's something we try to. It's something I guess we unintentionally do, but I feel like there's, when you're writing a song, we're like
aware of it.
You're aware of it, yeah. But like when writing this song, there's a lot of drop D on the bass guitar, so Cos is tuning down a lot on when we play live because we just have those deeper tracks. Like,
got to get a 5-string bass.
Yeah, that's you need that classic bass.
Do they have those 5-string like? They don't have 5-string like Fender Jazzes, do they?
Yeah. And the thing is that my bass is like, I like to think it's kind of like part of our sound. Like at this point, like a lot of people have asked like, oh, how do you get that bass tone? Like, how do you get this bass? I'm like, I literally get my bass and I plug it in direct input into a Focusrite, and that is all. Like we don't do anything because like it's just got such a nice like warm, round and like kind of throaty tone, and it already sounds like naturally so kind of fat that we don't really do too much to it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I have noticed in all your tracks, you have a very good bass sound. Like, it's interesting because I do feel like nowadays, especially in pop music, it's so common to have like plugins and samples, and nothing against that because, as a producer myself, like plugins and samples, all that save you time. And there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. But there is nothing like actually dialing in a real instrument, especially bass. Because for me, like having a phenomenal bass line it sounds like it would be easy, but it really isn't. And I'm glad you brought that up earlier because those frequencies, those really low frequencies are super fucking important. But it covers such like a specific section in this frequency spectrum that if you don't get it right, it could fuck up the whole mix.
Yeah, it just doesn't fill it out. It doesn't lay that kind of carpet that becomes the entire, track. Everything builds from the drums and the bass. So we usually do start with like, not necessarily like all our ideas start with bass line and drums, but we always try and get the feel and the interplay between the bass and the drums right before we keep building the track up.
Yeah, I feel like it's just you want the track sounding as powerful and compelling with like 2 or 3 elements before you move on and start adding more stuff. But there's a few songs where the bass isn't hitting right, but we do like it. So there's a couple songs that we do where we'll put like a synth bass underneath the bass guitar just to like add a little bit more low end energy into it. But as a whole, like the bass guitar, I feel like real bass is like there's a lot of good plugins like getting close to the sound of a bass guitar, but you just cannot like beat the real thing. Like it's the sound of like you can play the notes on all the different strings, the same notes on different strings. You can play the same notes on different frets or whatever. Every single one has a different sound, and the way when you're like sliding on the string, like between notes, it takes so long to try get close to that on a plugin, and this still doesn't beat the feel of the real, like the sound of picking it versus like muting it or whatever, fingering it. It's just there's just so many like different combinations that make it like it's simple. It's simple, but it's the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, it's the little nuances. It's the little nuances that make the difference.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and then you got to automate all the little nuances so they can sound real when you're doing it. On a DAW or on a plugin, you can't beat it. It's the same thing with guitar. When people are trying to emulate a guitar solo, there's some plugins out there that have gotten pretty damn close, but it's not the same. It's having a legit like electric guitar plugged in and just doing a fucking solo.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with like also. I mean, like for this record, we also almost every song we recorded live drums for.
Oh, I respect you so much more now. Yes. I mean, I respected you before. I've respected you before, but that's pretty cool. That's cool.
Well, yeah, like the song, we're not with this album, we weren't going out to, to make the album sound live. It's just, we've always come from this space of sampling. We loved sampling old disco stuff. And basically we just wanted to create, our own little world where we could, if we wanted drums, we had all these different fills and loops and stuff that we'd already recorded. So basically we went to a studio for a day with this really talented drummer, his name's Ross. And we were just like, can you play this pattern? Can you play this pattern? Can you play this pattern? I just kind of sequenced a bunch of stuff. And then I was like, play it as is, then play one where, add a few skips and fills and like ghost notes and stuff. And then another one where you just like freestyle over that tempo. And then we just ended up like collating, half an hour of drums with like every single layer. We had like the top, the bottom, the overheads, toms, everything individually mic'd up and sounding super good. And then so when it came to the record, we're like, okay, like we're writing Have It All. Like let's grab a drum beat at like 110 or whatever and just like layer it. So what we do is grab the overheads and then we just layer that with like a digital kick and snare. Yeah. And then so you get those really lovely sound of the overheads. It's like got tons of space and width and it sounds real. And then we just mix that in with the hi-hat mic and then we've just got that. And then it's just basically digital drums on top of it. So you get all the best parts for me anyway of live drums. And then you have like the punch and the uniqueness of the digital kick and snare.
Yeah, I feel like that's the right way to do it. I think it's something that I didn't realize that it's a bit of a secret that some people do, but I know that this is just something that I just recently became aware of. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't even know if you guys would even know this, but I think like that Dua Lipa song, the one that came out last year, the really popular one. I can't.
Oh, Don't Start Now.
Exactly, that one has that. I believe they have a Motown beat, and I can't remember what song it's from, but I think the producer has this Motown beat, and then he spliced it and layered in samples underneath it. So it's a 50-50. What you're hearing is a real kit, and you're hearing, like you said, like a digital punch from samples, and he just combined them both. And I think he sidechained it a little bit, but it creates that unique sound that you would not get.
It is. Yeah, it's so good because it's like you're getting the warmth and the depth of a live thing, and then you're getting the punch and the consistency of like the digital. It's like it's honestly like the best of both worlds. And also, like when it comes to playing live, this makes playing the album live a lot. It just works really nicely because we've just got our live drummer, and basically we just have a snare and kick trigger for him, and he can just play the digital kick and snare and then have all the rest of the kit just natural, and it just it's really kind of opens it up. And then there's like a few songs where you're like, okay, I'm going to blend the live kick and the digital kick together, for the front of house or whatever. And then there's some tracks where like in Million Times or Ice or whatever, where we just go for the full acoustic kit for certain parts because there's just moments where you just want to open up completely and just kind of have like a rock dog moment. And then he does that too. So like, it's just honestly like having a live, like a drummer in our show now is just completely just opened up the energy so much more. It's just crazy. Like, and also like Cos and our guitarist Timmy and our drummer Hassett, like they're just all vibing off each other. Like it creates such a more like powerful energy than just having like a show kit.
Yeah. I really love that you guys are applying this because I do feel that as a drummer myself, like I do feel like in other genres. So just to kind of give you a little bit of my backstory, I started in jazz like way back in the days. And I come from an Afro-Cuban background, and then I transitioned into more like pop, singer-songwriter, and then recently I've transitioned more into like the electronic music scene. And it is surprising at how, because the electronic music scene has been predominantly like producers and DJ heavy, but I feel like that world is starting to catch up, and they're starting to really embrace drummers specifically, which I respect quite a bit because as a drummer myself, it's hard to explain to people who are average music listeners who maybe aren't musicians themselves how important that backbeat is. The rhythm section specifically, like bass and drums together. Like it's funny how those two things can carry an entire song. And obviously it would be better with a full band with keys, guitar, but when you have a good drummer, a good bassist, and maybe some like samples or like some atmosphere in the background, it can do a lot, like a shit ton.
That was kind of like the whole philosophy of one of our tracks off the album with Matthew Young. So it was basically that idea, like how much groove can we put into a track that's just kick and bass, and that was kind of like the intro of the song. Yeah, we like when we wrote that idea, like literally we wrote like for It's Love, we wrote it in about 5 minutes. So we had this drum sample that kind of just had this kind of compelling swing to it. It was kind of a little bit like coming back. It was like leaning back in the pocket a bit. And I just played this 3-note bass line, do, 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 do. And we're like, all right, we'll come back to that later. That's the track now.
Dude,
yeah, it just felt so right. And when we played that track live, it's just sounds so much better with, you know, like our drummer Hassett and Cos playing off each other. It's just like they can hold the pocket in like such more of like it just has way more groove live than it does on the track. I guess it's just because it just feels like it's, I don't know, rolling over, and like it's a little bit, obviously because they're two humans playing, and like when we created the track, it's like, you know, we loop it after 4 bars or whatever, so it's still an element of like that sampling. But when you play live, it's just this, like it's constantly kind of evolving a bit, and it just stays interesting the whole time, which is really cool. But just because of the nature of them playing off each other for like 3 minutes straight doing this like bass line.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you give, like you guys as a duo and as a group also, it sounds like you guys go after that spontaneity on stage. I mean, based on my experience, you know, playing for many different people, I feel like it's usually 50-50. Like there's those groups that really just want to, you know, have a very tight produced show, know exactly where everything's at, and then just go after that. And, you know, some people love that. And then there's the opposite where the people prefer more spontaneity. And to me, if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like you guys might be somewhere in the middle where you play your show and you know what you're doing, but you also allow these little moments of, you know, let the music kind of do its thing. Is that right?
Actually, that's so bang on, because we really do want people to get, you know, we want it to sound as good as the studio version, but we don't want to give them the studio version. We want to give them like more, basically. I feel like when you play live, there's a lot more like room to kind of be like cheeky or cheesy and just kind of go a bit like ham it up a bit. And, you know, like I feel like our guitarist Timmy, he's like a super talented jazz guitarist, but we are like, most of the time he's just playing, you know, what we tell him, which is just the, you know, like the chords and that. And but every now and then, you know, we've like, when we do rehearsals, we're like, you know, we dope here is if you do this, or like if you just do whatever you want here, and we'll kind of open up the space for you to do that. And then so there's like moments in the set, like basically every other song where, you know, like Cos and Timmy basically just go off the script and just do whatever. Like it's just so awesome. Like you can, you know, like Cos will play different bass lines at points in the track. Like he just decides to do something different, or it's just, there's so much more flexibility with this the way we play as a full band. And like our drummer, you know, in the record, maybe there's not these huge drum fills going into the final chorus, or like he's not doing tons. It's just, there's so much more energy you can inject into the show.
Like nothing is baked in anymore. We're just like, in the rehearsal, we can try like so many different options. Like, hey, how would it sound here if you did like more ghost notes over, you know, this verse so it has more energy? Or can you do like, you know, a quarter note hi-hat to bring the energy up in the second verse? Like, you don't have to like write it in anymore. It's just like, we just try shit out in the rehearsals.
Yeah.
Takes us.
You know, I'm wondering, because you mentioned that Tim, your guitarist, right? I think it's Timothy. You mentioned how he comes from a jazz background, and I was playing in this group a couple years ago, and everybody was super talented, but the pianist was a heavy jazzer, right? So jazzer playing in a pop group And it was hilarious. I wonder if this has happened to you guys, where we would be rehearsing for a show, and then like he would sneak in a lot of these like 13th chords, you know, like a lot of really complex jazz, which you know did function in the progressions that we were playing. But you know, sometimes you can tell those 13 chords that they pop out quite a bit, and we would laugh. But then like the leader would just be like, "Hey, you got to stop playing those chords. Just play a C major triad, dude."
Yeah.
Has he ever done that? Just like sneak in some random chords.
He definitely like he does try to sneak some stuff in sometimes, but as a whole, like it's usually really complimentary because our music is, I wouldn't say it's not jazzy, but we do like to use, you know, a lot of extended chords and stuff in our music. So when he usually brings these really just nice complimentary voicings to the music already. So there's like some of our older songs if you didn't have guitar in, you know, like there's like History, Walk With Me, or Polarized, and Timmy, we just brought Timmy into kind of, for those tracks where there was originally no guitar, he just kind of plays these new voicings, and it just adds another dimension to the track that works so nice live. So it's honestly it's awesome to have his talents, because I'm like, this is the chord progression or whatever. Like, don't even have to tell him. He just picks up on stuff. He's just a total freak. So he just basically does. He's just like, oh, I'll have a play and see what you think, and I'll have a listen, and I'll be like, yeah, that was good. Maybe tone it down a bit for that second chord or whatever, or you can open up a bit more there. But he's just a machine. Like he does whatever you want. And,
yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. He's like more. He's not like we've been playing as like in the band for I think over 2 years now. So we definitely he kind of like picked up on the language of our set, and he knows what works, what doesn't, and yeah, he's real good.
Yeah, you guys seem very, very knowledgeable when it comes to music. Like it seems like when I'm talking to you, you understand more of like the, I don't want to say musician lingo, because I do feel like there can be, again, I'm just kind of, I'm throwing this out there because, you know, when you talk to a lot of different people, you start to understand that, you know, some people come from a like musician background, like trained as a guitarist or whatever. And then there's others who, you know, grow up more on like the artist side of things, you know, they sing, they perform, and there's nothing, neither path is better than the other, but you kind of start to, you know, notice the little nuances on either side. And you guys seem like, I mean, were you guys musicians before you guys started this group, or like, I guess that's what I'm saying, because you seem to be very well versed in what we're talking about, and I'm very curious. You guys are very talented.
We were very, thank you. We were very like amateur. You know, we grew up. We both learned piano from our mum, who is a composer and pianist, and we kind of were too not rebellious, but we just found it hard to take lessons from our mum, because, you know, you're like, I don't want to sit here and practice, you know, putting my hand on my knee to have the perfect hand form when I play the piano. I didn't even want to learn the piano for that matter. And so that was kind of our first foray into music. And then basically after that, we had a huge break. We sang in choirs throughout school. And, you know, all these things may have lent towards our musicianship. We learned, you know,
well, it's like we didn't learn to read.
We didn't learn. We never formally learned music, and we basically went into writing music, and then did a brief bit of music theory at uni or college for like 1 year, and that's kind of it. Everything else has kind of just come about through learning and over time. You know, like just being curious and learning through that.
Yeah, I feel like we've got like a small level of like music theory knowledge and stuff, but it's as a whole, it's kind of, we're just sort of playing things by ear, and I feel to an extent, at least in our opinion, we like where we are, and I feel like learning too much can sometimes be a hindrance, at least for us. Like,
I agree.
I like being a bit of an outsider in that I'm definitely still just like an amateur at the end of the day. Like, I'm doing it for the love of it. I'm not a crazy music theory person. I don't know all the permutations of where you could go. It's just we just work off how things feel, and if it feels right, we're like, cool, that sounds nice.
That sounds, yeah. Like, we're basically just completely going off ear with a little bit of knowledge to help us out every now and then.
Yeah, like we know like basic chord progressions. We know basic theory. You know, like that stuff. You know, we can modulate between keys and like between the major and the minor, parallel minors and stuff, and we know like seventh chords, ninth chords, borrowed chords, but it's not like we don't consciously think about it. It's just like if we need to, it's like there, just barely.
Yeah.
But as a whole, we're just riffing stuff out, like just playing keys, causes playing bass, and we just like. And if we hit a roadblock like musically, we kind of just take our time with that and figure it out bit by bit. But I definitely feel like I'm like actively deciding not to like learn too much, because if I feel like it can become like having too much knowledge can lead to kind of like, what's it called, like the like choice paralysis, where it's just like you're overwhelmed by the potential things that you can, like the permutations you could go down.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because I was talking about this. Who was I talking about this with? Someone on the show. But I, growing up in the environment that I did, I taught myself how to read music and all this stuff. But I also kind of went down the traditional scholarly road where you learn a lot of theory and stuff. And I do believe that it obviously depends on who you are, obviously. But for me specifically, learning too much, I feel like it's not that it hurt me. It's more so that you start to get obsessed over the rules. You know what I mean? Like you start to, before you create what you want to create, you start to then think about, okay, well then I can't do this, I can't do that. And in my opinion, it took me a little while to figure this out, but starting out that way for me is already a detriment in order to tell me what I can and cannot do. Whereas you're supposed to just let your creativity just kind of fly and then maybe put it somewhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like I completely agree. Like I feel like knowing technically what is correct it can throw you off. Like there's a lot of times when, especially earlier on in our music career, where we'd be writing something and I'd make a mistake or something, and it would end up like actually being like ending up in the song. I guess it'd be like a little happy accident or something where you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, and then it would just end up being in the track. And I feel like if you were maybe a little bit too musical or like theory focused, you'd like, get rid of that or something, because it's technically
you correct those mistakes.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this: when you guys first started making music, what were some of the influences that you guys were tuning into at the time? Because when I listen back to your music, I feel like you guys have this very cool blend of a lot of groovy bass lines, which I love, and very poppy, very, very good, well-rounded and written songs. But there's little nuances in your music where it sounds like it was made by a professional, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because there's people out there who make a living out of top lining, out of just making pop tunes, and they crank these out all day long. And a lot of these people are educated, so to speak. At least out here in my little bubble of like LA, you know what I mean? But every now and then I'll meet people like you who have found a way to not necessarily replicate that, but to create something that's uniquely theirs that can sound like that and make someone be like, oh, okay, are you part of that group? Are you part of that world? And obviously you guys are like, no, we're kind of doing our own thing. And that's where the surprising thing is, you guys figured that out. So I'm wondering, how did this style, come, or how was it created? How did you guys get influenced to make it, and what was some of the things you guys were listening to at the time?
I feel like a lot of the kind of as you were saying, it kind of sounds a bit more proficient, a bit more kind of professional, or sounds like real pop music, comes from Pat very much grinded out the production side of music for a long time. So as much as like we're like, okay, musically we're not like the most proficient, we don't know all the theory, but like Pat was like very much like, when it came to production, like did know like the theory, like behind how it all works, like how to mix and master. Like we're doing all our own mixing and all our own mastering basically up until our last album, just because we decided it was a bit too much of a stress and took too much out of the pleasure of writing, trying to mix and master as well.
Yeah.
And then you get this whole other end of it once you finish the track that it's not done and dusted. So we end up giving like a pretty much mixed and mastered version anyway to a friend of ours who's a very talented engineer who's also a musician, so he brings that musicality to the mix as well. And that kind of is how we arrived at our sound today, in terms of it sounding that, clean and punchy. But other than that, we started, like when we were in high school, listening to, really trashy electronic music. We listened to a lot of prog house. We loved like Cascade and Deadmau5 and all that stuff.
The classics,
and then, first of all, we really loved Daft Punk, and we were like, we just want to make sample house. So we spent ages trying to make sample music, and found like that was very difficult in its own way, as being like a clever sample manipulator. And it's something to this day that we've like tried to do and emulate in our music, like have that sound of our music sounding like it's sampled without sampling at all. It's another thing that the band Jungle does as well, is create their own samples, so that it sounds like it exists in a world. But when we were younger, we used to just listen to like, whatever teens were listening to at the time. And as we moved on to the music we're in now, we listened to more and more music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that my parents were listening to, and that they've put us onto later, because they kept finding parallels in our music. Like, oh, this song really reminds me of like this track that Stevie Nicks was on, or like this reminds me so much of like Eric Clapton, or like, this reminds me of Bill Evans, or this reminds me of Jim Hall, or, they like, and as they started, finding things in our music that they remembered from their, when they were younger, we would listen to it and expand what we were listening to kind of help inform our music. So kind of, I feel every album is kind of comes from a place of listening first and then starting to write after we feel like we've kind of got enough information to build from. Like we kind of go off our idea is that we try to make like a collage of, the past and the present, a kind of full circle between music, and that our music hopefully references and expands on music from the past, and we bring it up to date with, that kind of squeaky production that Pat's learned over time as well.
Yeah. Patrick, I'm wondering, did you, was it hard for you to pass on the mixing and mastering to somebody else? I say that just because I know I can be very picky sometimes too with some of the stuff that I work on. And there's this sort of sense of pride that comes over knowing that you kind of touched every single knob. That was your decision. But then giving the responsibility to somebody else, that can be, it's like a business choice. You're delegating and you're like, all right, I got to focus on other things. I'm wondering if it was hard for you.
Oh, it was super hard. Yeah. It was like, I didn't really want to let go of it, but I knew I had to as well. The last song I actually mixed 100% was History. And then after that, there was no more songs that I had no more role in the mixing. But as a whole, like, I feel like nowadays, especially, that the mixing process is not as like separate from the production phase as it used to be.
Right.
So we're still like mixing the tracks to a certain extent, but with so our first album that got mixed was What Comes Next, and that was, it was honestly, I had to go to our mixing engineer's studio and just sit next to him and just like be the super annoying person in his ear, being like, oh, can you tweak that? Like, can you pull that down? Can you bring that up? Like, I'm not liking where this kick is sounding. Can you like pull out some of, maybe the mid frequencies there, boost that? And he's just like, at this point, it's like, I should just be mixing it. But at like a certain point, he was just making these mixes sound so lovely and tight and rounded. And he's honestly a much more knowledgeable mixing engineer than me. He's a total freak. So they got to a point when we were writing our last record, like What Comes Next, where we was getting these final, like the pre-masters back. And I was just like, holy shit, like you're doing such a good job. These sound better than my mixes. Like you're just like, I'm just going to send, basically now what I do is I just package up the stems and the session and send them to him. And I don't even go to the room anymore. Like we have a few chats, like I'll call him and be like, oh, I'm like thinking maybe we could do this. And like, or cause like, when he's like a mixing engineer, but he's very creative. Like we give him like full, like, where there's no off limits or whatever. Like, I'm like, if you want to do something wild with that, and like, it's not just mixing, like he'll do like a little bit of effects here and there or something, just something to like sit it into the track. And we're like, try whatever you want and we'll just shoot it down if we don't like it. But if we do like it and it's something we didn't think of, like maybe he'll pull the guitar into a completely different space. He'll run like a different, you know, rack of pedals or effects on it, and to just give it a slightly different sound. Sometimes like the way I've produced something is like a little bit like wonky. Like there's a few tracks like Down For You where the kick is like, I really don't give a fuck about stereo imaging. So there's like a lot of tracks where they don't sum to mono, and I don't really care about that because I feel like most people don't listen in mono, and like festivals systems are like not in mono. It's
Right.
just, I feel like that whole idea of things needing to be mono compatible is like slowly becoming a thing of the past.
I feel like it already is. It kind of already is, you know?
Like it is good to have, you know, your bass and kick as a whole go down mono and hard, but like, yeah, there's a lot of times where we break that rule, and I feel like it doesn't really matter. But he kind of manages to make it sound as rich and wide as it did when I was like breaking those rules, and then still make it work, you know, in mono, because we do still press our stuff to vinyl, and that's where you need to kind of have that sort of low end locked away. Otherwise you get the needle skipping out of the groove. But yeah, it's honestly just been it's been a work in progress.
He's like one of the guys that like, one of the reasons why we give him the entire project as opposed to just giving them the stems is that like a lot of the time issues with the mix come from the sound design and where you've made your choices in writing the track. So like maybe a synth we've made, we like the envelope isn't correct, so he'll go in and like tweak the envelope to make it mix better, like, or like lower the resonance, or like these are things that, you know, you can fix after potentially with like an EQ, or like you can add overdrive to bring in frequencies that weren't there. But a lot of the stuff you can fix in the creation process, and so that's why he prefers to get the project so that he can go in and open up the plugins. He always buys every plugin we use so that he can, you know, use the sets to their full potential, and manipulate them at the beginning stage, as opposed to trying to affect everything after the fact. I think it's kind of like a subtractive way of trying to mix, instead of trying to add more and more plugins, more and more, you know, VSTs and effects to try and get the sound there. If you fix it at the beginning, there's less work for you at the end. So
right,
yeah.
You are right. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was you go.
No, I was just gonna say, you're just gonna say how you're absolutely right. I feel like nowadays, with the way that producing works, more or less you can have a pretty much finished track, or at least like 80% done by the time you're done producing it, and you pass it on to the mixer and master. I think it's kind of cool though that you've allowed yourself to let somebody else take over that side. And even though it seems like this person understands your needs and they give them to you, it can be a very daunting thing. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I know how hard it is, because it's like your baby, it's your song, it's your music.
Yeah, it was very daunting at first, but we've gone to a point where we're very like, it's honestly like exciting sending him something, because he'll take it from like the 99% to the, you know, like 110%, and he'll just add those little extra flourishes that, you know, you maybe didn't think of, you know, just bringing the sound, I know, quality just up, you know, up to 11 or whatever. But I'm actually like a mixing engineer. Like I still mix music, I just don't mix my own music. Like, because you're too close to it. It's really hard to, you know, really know what's right for your song after you've been working on it for like 60 hours or whatever. So I still mix other people's music, which is something I really enjoy. And so I guess I still have like that, I still have that mixing like background when I like have that dialogue with my mixing engineer, but I just don't mix our stuff because it's just, honestly, you're too close to it. It takes too long. It's stressful. There's way too many permutations. You're like, oh, you could just tweak the levels of a track to like, I don't know, whatever, like till the sun fucking explodes. I don't know.
It's true. It's true. You can literally spend an entire lifetime on one track mixing it, and it honestly, by the time you're done with it, it probably won't sound any better than when you first started.
Yeah, it can honestly sound worse, which is the saddest part. So honestly, that's why it's so much better to just hand off that whole part of the process to someone else who knows what they're doing and they have a fresh set of ears. So they're just coming to the track and they can immediately identify issues that you might have like just totally blanked to because you've just listened to it too much. Yeah.
Have you guys ever, I know you mentioned that you press your stuff to vinyl. I actually recently, maybe like a year ago before the whole pandemic thing, I got the opportunity to go to this really like it's like a historical landmark here in Los Angeles where it's one of the original places where they recorded straight to vinyl, like way back in the days.
Wow.
So it's not being pressed to vinyl. It's literally like you have a recording room and then you record to vinyl. It is such an insane process. Like you have to be incredibly quiet. The discs that they're like carving on, it cannot skip. It's like super fine. If you make a mistake, they have to start all over again. So there's that pressure where like if you're recording straight to vinyl. So it was a huge, I mean, no one really does it anymore, but it's that experience of, this is where music came from. You know, like back in the days, there was no 2 takes. I mean, there was, but the idea was they had
like to scratch and stuff.
Exactly. They only had like so many discs to go every day, and if you fucked up, like that was it. So you had to be on your game. Like that was an eye-opening experience for me, dude. So can you imagine?
I think the funny.
I could never.
Yeah, it's so wild.
Like the amount of like writing for us is such like it's like kind of chipping away at like a, you know, at a piece of marble or whatever. Like we take a long time, like, and I imagine, they do the same when they go record for vinyl. They're not going in and they're coming up with ideas on the day. Like, you know, they've got their ideas and they're recording. But like for us, it's very much like the last few bars informs the next few bars and then see where we go from there.
Yeah. It's like a kind of, like an impressionist painting or like whatever. You kind of just like, you're getting like a general sense of it, and then you kind of keep working away as you go. Where I feel like a lot back in the day, you had to have the song fully composed and ready to go, and then you perform it in one take, and that was it. So it's such a different process. I can't. It's wild. I love the flexibility that we got now, but it's just something funny is like we've just like loved that sound from vinyl and tape back in the day. That, you know, on the record there's a lot of tape hiss or like vinyl crackle sitting in the background.
Or console hiss.
And then when it comes to pressing it onto vinyl, you have like, okay, then like we got to take that vinyl crackle off because now it's going to actually be on there.
It's so true. It's so true. What is it about that crackle that just sounds so good? Like I love that crackle sound.
I don't know. It just I don't know. It's like a bed for the track to sit on, and it's kind of like when you turn the TV on and you just put it to like a static channel, and you just turn it down really low, and it's just that little white noise is just really soothing. Something about that just really.
It's like, I think it's like the same principle as like, you know, like a jazz trio. You have the brushed snare. Yeah. And the brushed snare just like creates this haze and smoke over a track that just puts it in a space. And it just, I think it's like invaluable if you want to make tracks feel like they're kind of, you know, from a time, or they're smoky, or they're hazy, or you just want them to feel like, you know, that they have that little vintage energy to them. But I think it's just like, it's part of the sound design choice, and it does like, I feel like it fills out blank points in your mix sometimes. You're like, I've got all these elements and they're not sitting. Like sometimes it is just having that back sound to blend them all together.
Yeah. I'm wondering, do you know if anyone ever puts like just like straight up white noise in the back of their tracks, just like a straight up very low tone deep in the background to like have or emulate that feeling? Like I know that you can get samples and emulate that vinyl crackle like we talked about, but I was just wondering, like, is that a thing that people do?
I think, I can't remember if I remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure that's something that Deadmau5 does, is he just puts
I've heard about that,
white noise layer at the, like, I think it was something about filling out like the noise floor. So basically if there's any missing frequencies in your production, just the white noise it's kind of like a dithering of some sort, where it enhances the detail of your song without actually doing anything. It's like, and it's like it gives you like the impression of detail without actually adding detail. So it's something that's really, that's basically why we do it, is we want to have that like that little hiss and crackle that just kind of makes your brain kind of think there's like brightness and detail when, you know, maybe there isn't.
I know. I love that. And that's one of the things that I sometimes wonder, like, even though artists like you are making fantastic music and it's stuff that's really cool that resonates really well with people, there is something about like really old-timey music. And I say that like of old-timey music, but you know, like classic music, like because of the way it was recorded, there is just this element that I feel like no matter how hard you can try to emulate it, you can't because of the technology.
It is
sure.
so. I just like when you put on like dad would put on like a Bill Evans or like Jim Hall recording, and like the hits comes in, and then it's the brushed snares, and then just the tone of like the muted jazz guitar is just you immediately just like in some smoky like nightclub at like 3 a.m. And it's so transportative. Like it really just puts you in this space. And I feel like the sense of space is something that people maybe like overlook or like underrate in like writing music, is where it takes you, like where it makes you feel like you are.
That is that's a very wise statement. That reminds me of Miles Davis. Like Miles Davis, he would say stuff like that. Like, not to take this in a completely random direction, but like, it just reminds me, because I love Bill Evans. Bill Evans is a phenomenal musician. But Miles Davis, a long time ago, he said that, he came from like a bebop background. So he was like back in those days when jazz was all about being fast and stuff, and it still kind of is. But he was like one of the first, I guess you can say, who went away from that and decided to just like, his solos were all just like 5 notes, and he would just hold them for like 2 bars. He'd just be like, and then switch to another note. And then he basically, kind of like what you were saying, he started talking about like the space and the atmosphere, and how he was trying to say a lot with a little. And he found that connected with people more than just tons and tons of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. There is something to that.
Bebop improvisation. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something to that.
Yeah. I think part of that for us is like, for example, like with that was like when we were playing with Timmy, our guitarist, and I'm like, yo, when we play our song Idaho, like play the solo how it is, because that came from that space of trying to have like an effective, simple melody that didn't, like had impact and wasn't trying to be any more than it was, and trying to like, set the tone and fill that space out. So that's definitely something that we try to apply. I think a part of that comes from the fact that I'm also not the best guitarist. Like I can't shred, but
hey, sometimes that works for your benefit though.
It does.
Yeah, well, play to my strengths. I'm like, I'll go for like a simple and effective, and
I really do feel like it's like, I really do feel like less as a whole like is more effective. And also
and
just
like
as a
whole is more relatable to people.
Yeah, like by contrast, like if you have this simplicity, like when you add a moment of complexity, it's a lot more like effective, because of the contrast of going from something like light to dark or simple to complex. It's like you don't want just one thing the whole time.
Yeah, if you go all 12 notes or crazy complex chords, it's gonna be less impactful than maybe basic triad, complex chord, basic triad, complex chord. I feel like the duality of having those two often provides a bit more like, flavor to the track than just one or the other. Right.
That's actually a very, very smart move. I'm actually kind of curious, is there anything from that era, I guess you can say like 60s, 70s, is there anything that you might have listened to recently that kind of came out of nowhere that really like swept you off your feet, that you were like, holy shit, this shit's dope? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can, this guy called Michael Franks that I hadn't heard ever until my dad put me onto him. But he's like kind of, I don't know, I'd say it's kind of like, he's not the best singer. His songs are super simple. There's everything about the track is, laid out to bear, and you can tell what every element of it, and I just felt that it was so simple and so effective that it would be great to try and work that into our music. Or even like J.J. Cale's Magnolia, it's like 2 chords.
Or like Tracy Chapman, Fast Car, or whatever. Like they're just these super simple songs that are just really powerful and affecting with not much. It's like, it's just, they're really compelling with what they have, and they don't need any more than that.
Yeah. I mean, it's about the kind of what we've been talking about. I feel like, and I find this in your music as well. It's about that, like that space that you can create, and that space, that we're talking about. What I love about it is that there are no rules on how to create it. It really is just an instinctual thing that if you really tap into what you like and what you love, ultimately you'll end up creating that space as a byproduct, and because I see it all over the place. There's been you can get that space with some very intricate jazz songs too, but like I feel like you can tell, like it's not there's not a middle ground. Like you either have that space or you don't. And it's definitely, I think that comes from a genuine place of making music. you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like how you said, it's kind of like an extinctive or extinctual thing. Is like I completely agree. Like you sort of just following your gut, and if it feels like impactful to you listening back to it, like you're sitting in the right spot.
Yeah, I love that, guys. I really appreciate you guys being on the show because this has been a very, very fun conversation. Because I didn't anticipate it to go this route.
Yeah, go very like similar like mindset. It seems to like a lot of things.
Well, yeah, I honestly feel like at the end of the day, what I try my best to share. And, I guess the message you can say that I'm always trying to spread is I just want people to find their own path, whatever that is. And when I find musicians like you who, regardless of their training, regardless of their background, regardless of A, B, or C, if you find that, if you carve out your own little niche and you just own it and you create that space like we were talking about, then you're doing something right. And I think that's it's worth sharing, how you think and why you think that way, because I think it's important and ultimately it's going to help somebody else create that space for themselves too,
Yeah. A lot of the time people ask like, have you got any tips for like producing or anything? I'm like not entirely. Like a lot of the process for us was just finding what your strengths are, and all I really say is like keep being like a fan of music. Like the more you listen to music, the better you'll get at music. As long as you're listening with like, a bit of an informed kind of response to it, you're going like, why did it make me feel that way? Like why do these certain combinations of instruments, or why do these melodies on top of these like bass notes like give me such a nice feeling? If you just have that kind of curiosity and kind of responses to music that you listen to, you'll improve at music. So it's kind of just like,
I don't think it's like necessarily like you got to like spend 10 hours a day like grinding away at like production and stuff. It's just like I feel like the technical side of writing music is always something you can develop and will always get there. But I feel like the creativity and the songwriting and like the compelling ideas are things that take more time to invest into like learning. Like I felt like I've been like a pretty competent mixer for a long time, but I feel like I've been a competent songwriter for a lot less. So it's definitely takes, I think they're just a completely different skill sets. So I guess if you want to, you just got to decide what you want to do. But I feel like Chloe said, like being a fan of music is key. Like
it's important.
You got to listen wide. Like you don't want to just listen to one genre or listen to just music that's contemporary and just dropped this year or in the last few years. Like try listen to where those songs developed from, like where those original genres sprouted from. Like maybe you could listen to like disco and funk from the 60s and 70s. You can listen to psychedelic, listen to where R&B came from, listen to where it, try to like become part of the discourse of music, because like music isn't written in a vacuum. Like everyone who writes music listens to music, and like the only thing that happens when you listen to more music is you write more compelling music yourself. So that's like that's something we would definitely try to tell people is like listen as much as possible.
I love that, and being a fan, because that's super important to continue with that, that love of creativity, that always trying to find something new with music. I'm gonna throw you guys a random curveball here. You guys should check out. I'm not sure if you guys have already, but this will be a mind trip for you guys. Check out the Shags. Have you ever heard of the Shags before?
The Shags? No, I haven't.
Okay, this is gonna be entertaining.
Just based on the name, the Shags. I don't know if I'm finding the right one.
Okay, so I'll describe it to you, and then you'll know if you found the right one or not. Shout out to my friend Yvette Young for showing me this, because this blew my mind. So if I'm not mistaken, the story is it was a family here in the U.S. back in the 60s on a farm somewhere. I forget where. But the story is that they had like 3 girls, right? This farm like family, and they didn't have. I guess they didn't live any like close to anybody or whatever, but the whole point is that they didn't have any music lessons, but they had music instruments, and I believe that they didn't listen to music. Maybe it was religious or something like that. But these kids learn how to play music without listening to music, and what they make is insane. Like it's not
I've always
that
wondered about this. Yeah.
But here's
what
the thing.
happens when music is in a vacuum?
It's not good. It's just like I don't want to say anything. You know what I mean? But you just take a listen to it. It'll fucking blow your mind.
Wait. So if you just type the Shags,
Philosophy of the World.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just. It's nonsense. It's insane.
It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say.
So keep in context that this family didn't listen to music, so they just literally got instruments and played whatever came to their mind. And they made insane shit. I don't know why, but that stuff entertains me, dude.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I always wondered what music would sound like written by people that like hadn't listened to this before.
Yeah, this is wild. I'm actually kind of into the mix. Like it's got that like it's like 1960s like wild track panning.
Yeah.
Which is I've always liked that, and then one day maybe we'll do it in a music with the whole drum track is just banging down the
one
left
side.
It's got a cool sense of space.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is wild.
It's super wild, man. Trust me. Like I spent like an entire afternoon just listening to it in disbelief. There's a lot of like interesting things to this whole story, but I guess since you're in that space of like exploring sounds and appreciating stuff from like, you know, in the 60s and stuff, like that was an interesting story for me when I discovered it. And anytime I get the opportunity to share it,
I'm definitely going to check them out after this.
You should.
Hearing it over Pat's speaker through Zoom isn't the best way, I imagine.
It's not.
Because what was it? Like, that like techno or whatever track we were listening to the other day that was like so cracked.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, this is so funny. Okay, so it's like 3 German dudes and they kind of just cooked it. Like and the guy who was doing the session was like, I love this track because it just makes me think of like what unbridled like creativity is. But I just like this song by the Shags. It is just really bad. It's called Whirlpool Productions. That was the name of their group, and the song's called From Disco to Disco. And when the song started, I was like, well, I think our loop from like our session is broken. Like it's playing through the track or something. And we realized, no, it was just the track sounds so bad and just so like we thought that our computer was breaking. Like we thought something was wrong with like Ableton or it was like looping over, but it was in the song itself. Yeah, Whirlpool Productions From Disco to Disco. It's like a similar thing.
That song
where
went
they were just like
in Italy, apparently.
What's that, Pat?
That song went #1 in Italy.
Yeah, no, it was a huge success. I think people kind of related to like the how it started out.
I can hear it. What the hell? You got to send that. You know what? Can you send me the link over chat? I want to check this out.
Yeah, Pat, send it over. I just found the name. Whirlpool. Yeah, I'll just link it here. Whirlpool Productions.
Dude. See, this is the other side of the explanation. You know, I'm all for free creative freedom.
Yeah,
but sometimes it can go really far. It can go really, really far.
All right, how do I message?
I'm loading it up right now. I want to see this. I want to hear this thing.
Pretty wild song. Like it's just, yeah, I don't know.
It's like a fever dream.
What the heck, dude? I'm just like scrolling through this.
And like it's everything slightly out and wonky as well. It's just
or the chords aren't like fully realized, and like there's like that crazy like atonal which just makes you feel like you're going crazy, you know. People loved it.
But honestly, like I kind of, despite all of that, like I was like ragging on it. Like we were listening to it and we were kind of like, yeah, it's sort
we
of.
kind of smiled because it just sounded like a bunch of friends just jamming, and then they kind of just trusted in like the power of the jam or something. They were like, "This is trash," or they didn't even know it was trash, but they were just like, "Man, what a jam! That was sick!" And they just put it out, you know.
But see, that's the beauty. That's what I love about it. It's just
you can just like literally like lunchtime at school. Like I'd go into the band room with like everyone, and we'd just play the most crap stuff. Like it would just be horrible. Like no, everyone was like on their own rhythm. Everyone was kind of just playing for themselves. So you was just like listening to like going into a restaurant. You hear 20 conversations at once. There's no like uniformity to it at all. You know, that's kind of like remind me of that a lot.
I love this, dude. From disco to disco. You guys got to hear this stuff. This is great. We need to make like an entire episode where we just listen to obscure music that's just insanely different. Because that's fun shit right there.
But stuff that I feel like is amateurishly different. You know, like I feel like there's a lot of people that really intentionally try and be different, but for people that just did it because they didn't, not to say they didn't know, but like, this kind of stuff is really refreshing to hear sometimes.
It is. And it's also like, I mean, not to sound cliche, but it's kind of that whole example of like, hey, you know, some people got together and they made some music. So, you know, if you want to make music, you just got to do it.
Yeah, you just got to do it. You could go #1 in Italy.
Oh, shit, man. Dude, I can't think of a better place to like start winding down this conversation because you guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys being so open-minded about a lot of things and just letting me explore your creativity a little bit and letting me show you that weird-ass track. I appreciate you sending me this track. I love this. I'm going to add this to my collection because I'm listening to some weird stuff sometimes, man.
Yeah, definitely found some interesting music today as well. Like I don't think I'm going to have a flick through that whole record by the Shags, sorry.
The Shags, yeah.
Yeah,
I will give you massive props if you sample the Shags. I will give you massive props if you do that.
Maybe use the drums.
Like a little drum break somewhere tucked away.
Yeah. There's some stuff in there.
Like when you get to the 11th minute, it's hectic. It literally sounds like what Cos was saying. Like it sounds like a bunch of 10-year-olds in the band room just all like picking up random instruments and playing shit.
Dude, it gets insane. It just, trust me, this has provided me hours of entertainment.
It started off, so this record starts off kind of, I don't want to say normal, but it's like the first track, Philosophy of the World, it doesn't represent what it sounds like further on the project. Like
not at all.
It's like it starts spiraling down.
You know, it's like a nice little like dipping your toe in the water, and then you just plunge in immediately after that.
Yeah,
that's a really good way of putting it. But yeah, I'm gonna flick that on after this and just have like a great time, I bet.
You're welcome. I gave you hours of entertainment there. I knew you would appreciate it. So, God damn it. You guys need to come back on the show at some point, talk about some of this weird shit. Tell me about some of the stuff that you guys got going on. I know that the pandemic hopefully is ending very soon. Your album is out. Do you guys have anything in the horizon that you guys are trying to plug or any performances?
Well, we've got like nothing to plug really, over to the, I guess it's like a worldwide audience, but imagine like the majority are from like the listeners of your podcast are in the States.
Correct.
Looking forward to coming back to the States. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but fingers crossed everything gets back to normal real soon. We can head back there in 2021. But we just got a bunch of gigs and festivals lined up for Australia for January, like just next year. So, fingers crossed they go ahead too. But yeah, we're kind of just playing it by ear. Got more music underway, and yeah, just see how 2021 goes. We're just kind of stoked off the back of our last album coming out just over 2 months, not even 2 months ago yet. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Enjoying the glow of the album, and yes, we just started feeling the itch to write more music again. So I think we just getting back into that now, like having a lot of chats with different producers around the world that we're actually just doing a lot of writing right now, just collaboration with no particular purpose. We're just like, we're meeting up with, we're doing like kind of similar things. We're doing like Zoom chats with like producers over this guy in West Virginia, and we're just like chatting for ages, and we're like, yeah, let's work on some music. Don't know what we'll do with it, but let's just see where it goes. And we got a few sessions like here and there for the rest of the year and some early January. So yeah, just like a little bit of like, dipping our toe back into getting ready to write more music.
I love it, man. I love that. I love where you guys are at. Your music's incredible. You guys are very cool individuals. To know that you guys are twins. You guys are twins, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the perfect package. You guys are a great duo. Your band. Shout out to your band, by the way. I mean, Tim. And what was your drummer's name again?
Hassett.
Hassett.
Shout out to you guys. You guys seem like you guys pair really well with Patrick and Cosmo. And so you guys have been doing great. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's very clear that you guys are on a path to even bigger success. And obviously, if I were to wish you luck, you wouldn't even need it because you guys are definitely doing some cool stuff.
Bro, thank you. I really, one thing I would say is I'm really would love to bring the full band to America for like a tour one day. So yeah, let's fingers crossed for next year that we can, bring and Timmy along with us, because honestly, it's so fun to tour them. Like we're actually friends with them before they joined the band. So it's just been like,
yeah, so it's like the ideal circumstance. And it's like, we all nod at each other when we walk on the stage, and it's really professional, and then we never say another thing till the next show. But it's just nice to be friends with our bandmates, because like I feel like that's the best way to perform. Yeah,
it's always good when you can actually get along with the band. I mean, there's so many that don't get along.
so many.
So whenever you bring Tim, and remind me your drummer's name again. Damn it, I forgot.
His name's Michael.
What was it again?
Michael works as well.
Gotcha. When all you guys come to the States, hopefully next year, fingers crossed, we're going out. We're definitely grabbing some drinks. We're listening to some weird-ass music. It's going to be great.
Go get some KBQ, Koreatown.
Oh, yes. We have some of the best in the world, dude. Seriously.
For sure. So good. I love LA. So much good food. Like, miss it.